Welcome back to Story Highway, your sanctuary for stories that navigate the intricate landscapes of the human spirit, where every journey we share is a reminder that profound healing often begins not in the light, but in the darkest, most silent corners of the heart, waiting for a single spark of courage to ignite it. Today's narrative is a testament to the resilience within us all, a deeply moving chronicle of a man who, in the face of unimaginable loss, found that he had lost everything except for that one unyielding part of himself, the quiet, stubborn core that simply refused to give up on the possibility of redemption. So, find a comfortable space, settle in, and allow this story to be your companion, guiding not only your understanding of the English language, but perhaps touching a part of your soul that needed to hear it. Michael Lawson had once been the kind of man who seemed to have been sketched by life's most generous hand. A brilliant and rising architect in the vibrant heart of Boston, his presence was marked by a warm, infectious laugh that could fill a boardroom, a life of curated comfort in a high-rise apartment that overlooked the city's twinkling skyline, and a fiancée named Clara, an artist whose greatest joy was painting sunsets, not for galleries, but just to see the specific way his eyes would crinkle with a smile. This perfect world, however, was built on a foundation of sand, and it shattered irrevocably one rain-slicked night when, after a grueling 16-hour shift, he fell asleep at the wheel for just a few catastrophic seconds, waking to a nightmare of twisted metal, the dizzying rhythmic flash of emergency lights painting the scene in strokes of red and blue, and the unbearable, soul-crushing truth whispered by a paramedic that the woman he loved, his Clara, would never, ever open her eyes again. Consumed by a guilt that became his only companion, he systematically abandoned the life he had built, leaving behind a promising career, the friends who tried to console him, and the entire city that now felt like a tomb, disappearing into the quiet obscurity of a small remote mountain town where the pines stood as silent sentinels, and no one knew the tragedy that shadowed his every step. Working monotonously in a dusty wood shop, where the scent of pine and varnish could almost, but never quite, mask the memory of her perfume, and living in a small, isolated cabin where the silence was so profound and heavy, it almost, he feared, would swallow him whole. This self-imposed exile continued for years, a gray and endless winter, until one particularly biting December morning, as he walked along the frozen river, his breath pluming in the icy air, he discovered a small, shivering figure, a little boy named Aiden, no more than 6 years old, sitting alone on a log, his small shoulders shaking with sobs as he explained through chattering teeth that his mother hadn't come home since the night before, and something deep within Michael, a part he thought had died in that car crash, something bruised and buried, but still, miraculously, alive, stirred, and then roared to life, forcing him to kneel down, to pick the trembling child up, and to embark on a desperate search through the skeletal, snow-laden woods. A search that ended when they found Aiden's mother, Sarah, slumped and unconscious against a tree, her skin dangerously pale from the advanced stages of hypothermia. As Michael, with a strength he didn't know he possessed, gathered her into his arms and began the treacherous journey back to town. Slipping on hidden ice, his muscles burning against the biting wind, he felt a seismic shift within himself. For the first time in years, he was not running away from his past, but was instead running toward something toward a purpose, a meaning that was immediate and vital. When the ambulance finally arrived, and the doctors later confirmed that Sarah would make a full recovery, she clung to his raw, shaking hands, her eyes filled with tears of profound gratitude, and whispered the words that would ultimately begin to crack open the fortress he had built around his heart. "You saved us both." Returning to his cabin that night, exhausted and emotionally spent, his gaze fell upon the dusty, rolled-up blueprints on his shelf, the dreams he hadn't dared to touch since the accident. And in that quiet moment, he knew with a certainty that resonated in his bones that it was time to stop hiding from his ghosts and finally, bravely face them. Over the next months and then years, he slowly reemerged, not as the man he was, but as a man rebuilt. He volunteered his dormant skills to rebuild the town's dilapidated playgrounds. He repaired old community halls, and he began to mentor troubled teens who felt as lost and anchorless as he once had. And in these acts of quiet service, he slowly came to a powerful realization that helping others did not erase his profound pain or the memory of Clara, but it did transform that grief into something gentler, something useful, a foundation upon which a new life could be carefully constructed. Then, one soft spring evening, as he walked a now bubbly Aiden to a school event, and the boy, without a second thought, slipped his small, trusting hand into his, Michael felt a quiet, spreading warmth of forgiveness settle deep within his chest. Not a forgiveness he needed from the world, or even from Clara's memory, but a long-awaited, hard-won forgiveness from himself. And he finally looked up at the blossoming sunrise, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink that Clara would have loved, and he whispered, his voice steady and sure, "I'm home," knowing in his soul that sometimes the very longest and most difficult journeys are not the ones that take us to new places, but the ones that lead us, step by painful step, all the way back to who we truly are. Thank you for traveling with us today on Story Highway. We hope this journey has been a meaningful one for you. If this story touched your heart, please remember, sometimes life breaks us apart, only to rebuild us stronger, more compassionate, and more resilient than we ever were before. Be kind to yourselves, and we invite you to join us again tomorrow for another story worth carrying with you on your own path.